Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're stepping right into your future classroom, and I'm going to be stepping into the role of your instructional coach. Together, we're going to unpack exactly how you can bring theater arts to life for your students. Now, as a future educator prepping for your certification, you're going to encounter a ton of standards. But today, we are focusing squarely on Competency 005B. It's all about creating meaningful theater experiences. So, let's dive right in, shall we? I want you to start by just picturing your future classroom. You're up at the front of the room, delivering a lesson. Look around at your students. Are they just sitting there, kind of glued to their chairs with blank stares? Or are they actively engaged, up, moving, speaking, and really exploring the lesson? Honestly, the biggest challenge we face as new teachers is taking students who are so used to being passive listeners and transforming them into active creators. And this is especially true when it comes to the arts.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the Classroom Challenge, and why it actually matters for your teaching practice.
You know, when we talk about theater in schools, it's super easy to just picture a big school play where, like, a few kids act on stage while everyone else just sits in the dark and watches. But that brilliantly illustrates the core shift you need to make as an educator. Theater instruction in an elementary or middle school classroom is absolutely not a spectator sport. Your goal isn't just to have students quietly watch a performance. You really want to shift them away from being passive audience members and transform them into thoughtful observers and completely active participants. Because when students actively participate, they process information in a completely different, highly engaging way.
Moving right along to Section 2, Unpacking 005B, let's do a competency deep dive.
So how do we actually make that shift from passive to active happen in your room? Well, let's look directly at the text of descriptor B. The competency specifically demands that you know how to engage students in theater experiences that are meaningful, enjoyable, and educational. You need to know how to select and use instructional strategies, materials, and activities to help your students interpret creative expression and performance. In simpler terms, you are the curator of their artistic experiences, and you have to choose activities that purposefully build their understanding.
To really nail this competency, and yes, you'll definitely see this term on your exam and use it in your lesson planning, we need to anchor ourselves to creative expression. Basically, this means communicating ideas, emotions, and experiences through artistic means. Whether a student is pretending to be a super shy turtle or, a highly caffeinated superhero, they're using their voice, their body, and their imagination to express a specific emotion or idea to the rest of the room.
But here's what's really interesting about this concept. It provides the necessary counterpart to expression. Expression is really only half the equation. Interpretation is the other half. Interpretation is how your students are going to explain or make meaning out of those artistic experiences and performances. And a performance, by the way, is simply the presentation of dramatic work before an audience. So when one group of students is up there expressing an idea, the rest of the students, those thoughtful observers we talked about earlier, are actively interpreting what that performance actually means.
Okay, so what instructional strategies can you literally pull right out of your teacher toolkit to make this happen? Well, you have improvisation, which is entirely spontaneous, unscripted dialogue. Then you have dramatic play, which allows kids to safely explore ideas and situations through informal role-playing. And you've got reader's theater, where your students read scripts out loud without the totally terrifying pressure of having to memorize their lines. These are going to be your go-to materials for building a theater-rich environment.
So the absolute crucial point here is this. Theater is learned through doing. It's learned through active participation. Meaningful, educational, and genuinely enjoyable theater experiences require students to get their hands dirty and get involved. In addition to the strategies we just covered, this also includes storytelling, role-playing, and pantomime. As a future teacher, your lesson plan should absolutely prioritize getting students out of their seats and into the material through these hands-on methods.
Which brings us to Section 3. Theory in action. Let's take a look at some real classroom application. Let's pull these academic definitions right out of the textbook and step directly into, say, a second-grade classroom. Here is a real, concrete classroom application of improvisation and role-playing. Step 1, the teacher reads a familiar fairy tale to the class to set the baseline for the activity. Step 2, the teacher has the students assume specific character roles from that story. Step 3, the students then jump in and create spontaneous, unscripted dialogue to act out a scene. Notice, this isn't just recess or free play. It's a highly structured instructional strategy specifically designed to promote understanding.
And why do we do this? Because the dialogue demonstrates story understanding. This is going to be a massive aha moment for you as an educator.
By watching this unscripted performance, you can immediately gauge their comprehension. If a student is playing the big bad wolf and their spontaneous dialogue is super timid and quiet, while you instantly know they might need a little help interpreting that character, the acting actually becomes a real-time assessment tool that helps students interpret creative expression.
Now take a moment to put your teacher hat on and reflect on this scenario. How might you adjust this fairy tale activity to support the incredibly diverse needs and backgrounds of all the students in your room? What if you have a student who is an English language learner? Or what if a student just has severe stage fright? Your instructional decisions matter immensely here. Maybe you utilize pantomime, acting without words, for a student who is still building their vocabulary. Or maybe you use reader's theater, so a nervous student has a physical script to anchor them. That right there is how you differentiate instruction while still perfectly meeting the competency.
All right, let's head into our final part, Section 4, your future classroom. Here are your key takeaways for the exam. Let's wrap up with exactly what you need to lock in for your certification exam and your future lesson planning. Keep these 4 pillars firmly in mind. First, students learn theater through active participation. They literally must be doing, not just watching. Second, dramatic activities must be highly engaging. Third, ensure absolutely everything you do is developmentally appropriate. I mean, a second-grade dramatic play activity is going to look vastly different from a middle school improv exercise. And finally, number 4, interpretation and creative expression have to be your central goals. At the end of the day, your ultimate responsibility as a new educator is to shift your classroom culture. You want to build this safe, super supportive environment where every single student feels confident enough to step out of that passive audience and into the active creative process. When you select the right activities, whether that's a spontaneous role play or just an informal reader's theater, you're genuinely giving them the tools to understand the world around them through art.
So, as you get ready to step into your very own classroom and take charge of your students' learning journey, I want to leave you with one final question. What will your very first move be to unlock the creative expression hiding in your future students? How will you set the stage for their voices to be heard? Think on that for a bit, because I know you are about to create some truly incredible theater experiences in your classroom. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer.